Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I want to tell you all about my show, the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we do a thorough analysis on the biggest issues and trends within the pro wrestling industry. We talk a lot about pro wrestling media, we talk a lot about fan culture and wrestling's place within general pop culture, and we talk about the broader influences that are shaping the way we discuss and analyze the pro wrestling industry. We've had some of the brightest minds in the pro wrestling intelligentsia on the show, including WrestleNomics host Brandon Thurston, both Rich Craich and Joe Lanza from the Flagship Wrestling Podcast, Trevor Dame from the Through the Years podcast, and a whole lot more. This isn't a show for hot takes. It's not a show recapping the latest episode of television. This is a show focusing on the biggest topics in pro wrestling and doing a deep dive on the real stories behind the surface level analysis you might find elsewhere. The Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, and we'd really appreciate it if you gave us a try. Thanks.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A-game. A-made, no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This is an A-game, better bring your A-game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A-game. A-made, no rain.
Hey now, it's the Mike and JD Show, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm joined as always by JD, by God Oliva. We're here on a Sunday night. JD, how are you doing?
Good, man. I was busy all weekend, this time of year, wrestling.
Yeah.
Finished my finals last week. Pretty stoked about that. One more semester left, and I'll have a master's degree, so just can't wait to get that done.
Yeah.
So,
I'm in the midst of my my last two classes for my master's degree. And I'm going to focus on that while I also focus on trying to retire from the military. So I got that to look forward to coming up. Quick explanation as to why we're on a Sunday and not our usual Thursday night time slot. So despite the fact that I'm retiring, I was asked to come to a meeting at the very end of the day that lasted almost 2 hours. It's like, you guys are killing me. And it happened to be like, not only did I want to come to do this podcast, it was like the meeting was going on while playing. So like I'm getting like super irritated at this point. I really didn't have like an agenda for the show ready yet. I didn't know what to talk about. I knew there was some stuff going on, but I just wasn't prepared. And then my wife was needing me to come home because she wasn't able to get anything done because the baby was being needy, as babies will do, right? Like, but he was just like nonstop eating, and he wouldn't let her set him down. So I needed to take over the baby. So I just texted JD. I was like, bro, we got to push this thing to Sunday. And he was more than happy to do that because you're pretty freaking busy yourself, right?
Yeah, it was a crazy week. I said I had my finals last week. We have our finals for the school this week. So my classes don't really have finals. Like we just have projects that are due. So it's not a big deal on that end, but it's just a lot, just a lot going on at the school right now. I had to do a presentation for the school board for our video production program last week. Then kids wrestling. It's a lot, So it's good. I was okay pushing to Sunday this week. It worked out just fine for me.
Yeah. And it also helps that so if we do it Sunday, Dave's Observer will be out. It's like, okay, we can poach the news. So that was good because up until that point, like as of Thursday night, there wasn't like a crap ton to talk about. And then Friday morning, all hell breaks loose on the internet because TNA got their CM Punk back. TNA got their problem child, their pain in the ass. She's really a blessing to my YouTube thumbnails because boy, oh boy, is she driving some business for us. So God bless her for it. But man, Tessa Blanchard is back. I did a live stream on Friday that's done really well. And I obviously did my regular Brace for Impact show yesterday, and I invited our buddy Lucha Doncic, who has been banging the Tessa Blanchard drum
for
since
years.
2020. since 2020. Somebody sent Io sent me his tweet from 2020 where he's like, "Mark my words, she's coming back." It took a while, but he never lost hope. She is back, and the internet has taken that story by storm. Everybody seeking some self-validation has decided to comment on the whole thing, but and sure enough, so did I. And I've also taken the opportunity to stir shit, believe it or not. Like,
shocking.
Yeah, but it was a big story. She came back. She returned at Final Resolution. She confronted Jordan Grace, and it looks like that's going to be the match that they're going to do at the pay-per-view coming up in January, which would probably be a pretty incredible match. Trying to do like a worked shoot deal there between the two of them. I think they're leaking some information to the sheets, saying that they don't like each other. So some of that stuff has come out. So what do you think of this whole Tessa Blanchard thing, coming back and being welcomed back by a televised American wrestling promotion?
She fucked up, right? Just up for money. Then we found out she was saying some controversial take on these.
Hey, JD, hold on. I need you to, like, you're cutting out again. I don't know. I can't hear anything that you're saying right now.
What? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's fine.
All right. I think I lost JD. Yep. Lost JD. All right. Well, this is the problem with live internet television, folks. If we have to depend on our internet, sometimes we just go out. Sometimes we have to eat shit sometimes. So here, I'm gonna go to the chat real quick while JD gets his internet fixed. Anonymous says, if Tessa is beating Jordan on her way to WWE, if Tessa is on her best behavior, could you see them possibly running a rematch down the line when Jordan gets the win back? I think the idea is that Jordan's putting over everybody on her way out. She's lost to Masha Slamovich a couple times. She lost to recently she lost to Tasha Steelz of all people. And she didn't lose to Rosemary on Friday night, but I think that's kind of what they were going for. But I don't see a world where Jordan Grace gets the win back. Now, could they have Jordan pin Tessa first as like a sign of good faith, and then Tessa gets the win back? I could see that. But I have talked about Tessa ad nauseum, and I'm hoping that JD comes back because I really want to hear what JD has to say. Terrence Sullivan in the chat. Terrence says, "What's good, fellas? What's up, my brother? How you doing, man? Thanks for being here on a random Sunday night with us." Lil Silva says, TNA updated the complete history of Tessa. Yeah, I mean, they're going all in with Tessa. They're going all in. Jordan Grace, if she refuses to fight Tessa, she doesn't have to face her. She could say, F you, I'm going to WWE. Yeah, I mean, like Jordan Grace, I've said it time and time again. Jordan Grace has all the leverage. So if this was something she didn't want to do, she wouldn't have to do it. She's got the leverage in the situation, and no one would blame her if she did not want to take the match. No one would blame her at all. Anonymous says, I think they want to run Tessa versus Masha for UBS Arena. I think that's what, as far as females go, I think Masha and Tessa would be the match to go to for the UBS Arena in New York when they run that for Slammiversary. All right, JD, I think you're back. I think you're clear. All right, let's get your thoughts on this whole Tessa deal, because I think everybody's already heard what I have to say.
Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yeah, I think you're good.
Trying to make my phone a hotspot. We'll see if that works. I have a super hot take on this. Like I said before, she held TNA up for more money to lose the title. She said some really vile things in the locker rooms. She was a genuinely unlikable person. And then I feel like she's the one person who has successfully got canceled in pro wrestling. Right?
It's probably her, David Starr, Joey Ryan, and Marty Scurll. Yeah.
Jimmy Havoc, maybe.
Yeah. And of the four, I would say like she is like, she didn't do anything nowhere near as bad as those guys. Let's just put it out.
She used words that were vile.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think she should not work forever. I'm a firm believer that the system is built around the fact that people can learn and can grow and can change, right? I'm a teacher. Like I believe these things. If we can't reach people and they can't change, then we failed. Like I look at like a guy like a Jay Briscoe, who everyone kind of admits it was the wrong. He did some stupid things, but was punished for way too long.
Yeah.
You know, and it hurt the legacy and the family and all that stuff for, you know, something that he genuinely apologized for. I think that if Tessa Blanchard has shown genuine remorse and wants to move forward, I don't think we should punish her forever by canceling her career. Like, I don't. I think now if you give her another shot and she proves to be a bad person still, okay, you know, then go ahead and, you know, cast her out. But I mean, I can't fault someone trying to be better. I just can't.
Yeah. Here's my thoughts. It's a very risky move by TNA, considering the reason why she left in the first place, which wasn't because of her behavior in the locker room. As far as I know, she was fine in the TNA locker room back in the day. The issues that she had was more overseas and in independent locker rooms with some of the women. Right. That's where a lot of that stuff came from, is what her days on the independents and working in Japan, where she was, you know, called a bully and a racist. She said she got into an altercation with a girl named La Rosa Negra, and she said the word in that altercation and spit in her face, and that was the accusation. Since then, her and La Rosa Negra have made up. In fact, Rosa tweeted a picture of her and Tessa a year ago and said they were cool. It was like a year and a half ago. Now Tessa had what Tessa hasn't done is she hasn't gone on a public apology tour.
She should.
And apologize to everybody in public. It's one of those things where, you know, CM Punk said that the apology should be as loud as the disrespect. In this case, her disrespect was in private. So, and it was brought to the public by the people that she offended. So I don't know that it warrants her, you know, going around and apologizing to everybody on social media. Some people just aren't built that way. And some people make amends through actions, right? And they change their life and they live better. They're not really good at addressing those situations, and she's chosen not to do that publicly. That is her right. It's her prerogative. For the people that have tried to get rid of her, I think Larry Dallas said this on Twitter. You have gotten rid of her. You won. Now she's back in TNA, but TNA is like, their footprint is significantly less than AEW and WWE. The money potential, the money earning potential in TNA is significantly less than what she would be able to make in AEW and WWE. She's not in AEW or WWE, yet you're still trying to keep your foot on this lady's neck. And so look, and I get it if you're a TNA fan and you don't want her in the company because of holding people up, but if you don't want her there because she was rude to people while she was on the independents, like, you're not going to see or experience any of those things. She's not going to come through the TV and do those things to you. So I don't really understand why you would not want to watch a television show because Tessa Blanchard is on the television show. That I don't get. It makes no sense to me. It's like, well, I heard she was rude to people on the independents and she said some vile stuff to somebody overseas. So therefore, I'm not going to watch the television show. And I'm like, you didn't see any of that. You didn't witness any of that. You didn't experience any of that. And she's not going to come through the TV and do any of those things to you. I don't understand why that is such a thing. And I don't understand why she has been canceled for as long as she has. She deserves a path to redemption. Now, I get it. She hasn't gone on a public apology tour. I understand that part. I think it would be better if she did. Some people just ain't built that way. She appears to be one of those people. But look, Lucha Blog was saying it on, he wrote a column about it. She's been in CMLL for over a year, and apparently they loved her there. They wanted to keep her around. In fact, she was a tag team champion there. I think the reason why she left CMLL is because she asked if she can do TNA and do both. And I could be, if somebody in the chat read that article, I read it yesterday, I might be misremembering, but the way that I took it from Lucha Blog is the reason why she left CMLL is because she asked if she can do both TNA and CMLL told her no. And she ultimately decided to go with TNA. Now, she didn't drop the tag team titles, much like Stephanie Vaquer, like back to back. I don't know if that was an agreement she had with CMLL. I don't know if they got burned. I don't know anything. I don't think CMLL holds those tag titles in high regard.
Or any other titles.
Right. It seems to be a paperweight, to be honest with you. That's my read on it. I am not that embedded into the culture of CMLL. I don't quite know their deal. The last time I watched their show is because AEW stars were in the main event. So like that's my knowledge of CMLL. So I could be completely talking out of my ass, but that's my read on the situation. So now, like to JD's point, is she not supposed to ever work again? You know, it's not like she's getting paid millions of dollars here and is like a completely successful person. In fact, I think she's been punished because she would be a multimillionaire at this point if she didn't do the things that she did. She's been held accountable. Let's see what she's got. Let's give her another opportunity. And if it blows up in TNA's face, which I think if I were a betting man, I would bet on that because it's happened to her in TNA, it happened to her in WWE, and it happened to her in WoW Superheroes. She just happened to have a good run in CMLL where it worked out.
Mm-hmm. And the WoW Superheroes thing, I mean, that was a disaster to begin with. I don't know. I don't know, man. I can't fault them for trying again. And for her, it's probably she sees it as a door back toward working to WWE, which I'm sure is kind of what. And if that doesn't work out, I'm sure she can see it as a springboard, maybe to come into AEW finally. Like, I think she needs this. I think this could be her apology tour, this TNA thing. And I think I hate work shoots, but I think there probably is more money in her not apologizing right now and to try to stoke some flames a little bit. Because I don't think one person's not going to watch TNA because Tessa's back. I don't think that's real. Like, I don't. Yeah. I think people. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well,
sorry.
I think that's people that are just want to be angry that aren't watching the product to begin with. You know, I don't think they're going to lose a single viewer because of Tessa Blanchard. If anything, they're going to excite their fan base.
Yeah, and if anybody's wondering why TNA would bring her back, well, Jordynne Grace is leaving, and they don't have anybody there to replace her. And Tessa's the only thing that comes close. Now, Jordan's a bigger star now than Tessa. Tessa is now, right? But Tessa is the second biggest ratings draw in the history of Anthem-owned Impact. Since, or at least Impact on Access TV. I pulled up the numbers from WrestleNomics in preparation. I actually prepared for this.
Ooh.
Her average total viewership from her run as the top star on Impact on Access TV, which was just a few month period, because they got on Access TV in late 2019, and then the pandemic hit in spring of 2020, and then she just never came back. The average is 196,000 viewers, which is pretty incredible for that station. The highest rated show that they did with her on it as her the top star was December 10th, 2019, which was 220,000 viewers. That is the second highest rated episode of Impact on Access TV, only behind the Kenny Omega episode, which got 222,000 viewers. Now I know the Kenny Omega, the replay episode was actually, what's that?
The Wrestle House episode.
The Wrestle House. The replay of that episode was higher, and then they put it on the internet, so the cumulative was a lot more than 222 for the Kenny Omega. But if you're talking about just a first run episode, that's what the comparator is. That's what ad revenue is driven from. It's Kenny Omega at 222. It's Tessa Blanchard at 220, right? I didn't go over Kenny Omega's average rating because it was not good, because he never got back over 200,000, but Tessa had several episodes over 200,000. Right in there in that 190, 196 range was the average. And Kenny Omega, his second best one that he was on was like 168. I took a look at it. There was an episode before that where the main event was Juice Robinson, was Finn Juice versus, I can't remember the episode. That got almost 200,000, but Kenny Omega wasn't on that episode. So Tessa Blanchard is the last time that they've actually had a big ratings draw. After that, her run as champion in February was the last episode before the pandemic, and then you get into March and it's like pandemic, and then the ratings completely fall off a cliff until Kenny Omega comes in, and then he only really popped a couple of numbers on Access TV, and then that was the end of it.
Couple things. One, you talk about ad revenue with Access TV. There is no ad revenue with Access TV. Yeah. So I mean, like that's kind of that's kind of a non de plume. Pandemic era wrestling TV ratings sucked everywhere. Yeah, because nobody wanted to watch empty arena wrestling. So I think you're comparing apples and crab apples a little bit there. Like Kenny Omega and TNA is interesting, but it's still in an era where nobody was really watching a lot of wrestling.
Yeah, no, that is true. I'm just saying the last time they had anybody that was averaging those kind of numbers was Tessa's era, right? And then the pandemic hit, and then everything falls off a cliff. Kenny Omega brought him back for a couple of episodes, but that was really it, right? And so they're looking at it as like, okay, we're back. We got hot crowds and bigger crowds than we ever had before. And can we bring back the greatest ratings draw in the history of our TV show on our network? I think that's why they're doing it. Scott D'Amore's gone, so he's not there to make the decision. This is the bean counters. This is the people that are like looking at the numbers. So I'm just trying to like, why would they want to bring her back? Well, if we take a look at the numbers, she was successful for them in the early stages of Impact on Access TV, and they've never been able to get back there since then.
Yeah, for multitude of reasons. I can't hate people trying to give someone a shot. Like, of all the people in wrestling that have gotten a shot again after screwing up, her dad famously made a big mistake and never got another shot again. Like, Tully Blanchard's the only professional wrestler of the 80s that actually got punished for doing cocaine. Like, really, really punished. He failed a BS drug test and couldn't get a job again in mainstream pro wrestling.
Yeah, he was notoriously a pain in the ass, much like his offspring.
Apples and trees.
And so I think they use that as a way to like, okay, we're just not like he's a cocaine guy, so we're never going to bring him back. And I'm like, if you had to take a look at the roster when he tested positive for cocaine in 1990, it'd have been like 75%, 88.
Yeah,
He left. So he failed the cocaine test.
89, I'm sorry, 89. The test was 89. Yeah, coming back in 90. Yeah, you're gonna look at the WWF roster and like a roster featured Jake Roberts. Like, come on, man, and Roddy Piper. Like, come on. Like, he's the only guy who ever like. What's that?
I'm sorry. You're a better historian than me. So at that time, '89, the Brainbusters were looking to go back to WCW. And they had given their notice, and then while they gave the notice, they went ahead and did the cocaine test, knowing that Tully would fail it. And then that thing, and then they ended up bringing in Arn at significantly less money because of that, right? That was the whole story.
Arn didn't fail. Tully did. They brought Arn. Like, Jim Herd's a dickhead. So Jim Herd told Arn he's not as valuable without Tully. But Arn had already put his notice into WWF, and he already was unhappy with the money he was making in WWF. So Arn got fucked twice over. Yeah. Right. Tully, on the other hand, just didn't get his job back. So, and Jim Herd's like, we can't bring in a guy who just failed. Like, the drug test is basically, they did it to derail, to fuck with the Brainbusters for going back to WCW. Like, that's one of the all-time greatest, like, Vince McMahon is a petty piece of shit things. Like, but I mean, Tully made his own bed. Like, he was a notorious asshole, you know, and his daughter's not terribly different. But I mean, like, very famously, the money held up thing was from Magnum, right? Her stepdad, Magnum TA, told her to do that. So, I mean, like, it's wild to think about that. My favorite match of all time, those two guys essentially raised a daughter. There's like a sitcom there somewhere along the lines.
I think Jim Ross at one point was pitching like a reality show with the Magnum and Blanchard family. I guess the Terry Allen and the Tully Blanchard family, like being a blended family. It's so weird.
I would have watched that. I think that, I mean, as a wrestling fan, I think that's absolutely fascinating. But aside from that, I can't get mad at them for trying something, especially I think this is the year we're really going to see the effects, like the ripple effects of the WWE TNA relationship. I think you're going to I think Joe Hendry's going to be there sooner rather than later. I think Jordan Grace is on her way out. Like, it's the kind of stuff we could expect.
Yeah. Joe Hendry's probably going to be over there at the end of 2025. Jordan Grace is going to be there next month. And I think so is Josh Alexander. I think he's going to go back and reform the North with Ethan Page. Gresham looks like he's on his way out. There's a couple other, but Gresham is like a pre-show guy, to be honest with you. He hasn't really had an effect on TNA. But lots of people are leaving, and they got to fill those, like Speedball's gone. They got to fill the roster back up. And so they went back to the Tessa well, which I think every promoter looking at like, hey, we're losing a bunch of talent. Here's our problem child. Let's break in case of emergency. And I think they're at that point because we covered it, last time we were here with BQ. They have some major arenas coming up. They got the Curtis Culver Center coming up in January. They got they're going to go play the USC Trojan basketball arena in April. They got the UBS arena, which is a 17,000 seater, coming up in July. They got to fill those places up. And so who are they going to get? Well, Tessa's one of those people, and they're going to get anybody that they can to do this because they probably wrote some checks that they are not ready to cash just yet. They're taking some chances next year. They're trying to go big next year. So they got to bring in people.
Got to try. I think it remains to be seen whether or not Tessa's an arena draw. She did some decent rating stuff 5 years ago, so
they weren't selling hardly any tickets at all back then. And like
that's what
we're talking like in the hundreds.
Right. So like, let's see, like, is she gonna matter much for tickets? I don't know, but the brand is hot. The brand is hot right now. But they're having a massive turnover. So let's kind of see where things are at in 4 months down the line. I think I do think we're going to see another kind of an interesting first quarter 2025. I think these things are going to be very interesting in pro wrestling in general.
Yeah.
In the next few months. So I can't fault them on it. I can't I can't tell someone they're never allowed to work again because they said something stupid. If everybody held everything stupid I've ever said against me, I would be unemployable.
She's not, as far as I know, she's not a criminal, right? She just happens to be a pain in the ass and a rude person. Pains in the asses and rude people can learn and change and grow through lived experience and harmful consequences, which she's had both, right? She absolutely was blackballed from the business for 5 years. And TNA is not the first company to give her another shot. It's CMLL. So if you want to blame anybody, blame AEW partner CMLL. Do that. So, but they're the ones that rehabbed her, and TNA is bringing her in. So,
but I mean,
see how it works out.
Yeah, see how it works out. Like I said, if she's a pain in the ass again, okay, you tried and it didn't work. Like, it's funny you mentioned CM Punk before. The apology has to be as loud as the disrespect. That guy never apologized to anybody.
No,
and he's a gigantic pain in the ass, and he's gotten opportunity after opportunity. Like, and there's a lot of people that have said very vile things on the male side of things who've gotten numerous opportunities. Randy Orton is a god amongst men in WWE, and he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah,
right.
Notoriously, especially when he was Tessa's age.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, yeah, she fucked up, but I mean, like, I cannot in good conscience say somebody should never work again when they never broke a law. They never really hurt somebody. Yeah. Let's see what happens again. I can't get too mad about this.
Yeah. We're gonna move on. I've already covered the Tessa thing a couple of times already. Go to our YouTube channel, check it out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, comment on the video, and make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. JD, we're like 40 subscriptions away from hitting 2,000. I would really like to get to 2,000. So I'd like to get to 2,000 like sooner rather than later. I'm not going to put like a deadline on it, but I'd really, that would mean a lot to us, and it'd be really helpful to our channel to get to 2,000. So everybody make sure you're a subscriber, and also subscribe to the Voices of Wrestling channel too. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, well, let's get over to some AEW talk. No more TNA talk. TNA fans, I see you in the chat. I love you guys. I'm going to be doing some more TNA stuff coming up during the week. I am actually going to write an article about Tessa Blanchard, and then I'm also going to do an end of the year article about TNA's business turning around starting in June of last year. I'm going to update an article that I had already written, but I'm actually going to make it a little bit better and probably put it out for more people. So TNA fans, I see you. We're going to talk some AEW stuff right now because we talked about TNA's business kind of on the upswing at the box office, at pay-per-views, and actually even in like October, November a little bit, like they actually had like a small ratings uptick where they're back in the top 150. In fact, at one point they're in the top 100. Now, of course, that all went to shit when they, on Thanksgiving, Access moved their show to midnight and they only got 18,000 viewers. But other than that, they've actually done pretty decent, and it's causing them to book bigger arenas. Well, the opposite has happened for AEW. They're booking smaller arenas, and I think that's a smart idea. Their ratings are drastically going down. This is from the Observer. So ratings in the 18 to 34 demographic have dropped drastically, with the December 11th episode drawing 70,000 viewers in the demo compared to 165,000 viewers for last year's Winter is Coming. I don't think that is a decline caused by loss of cable homes on TBS. I think that is loss of interest in the company. There, you would expect there to be a little bit, but that is over half that they've lost. Rampage, they went from they drew 9,000, and last year it was 43,000 in the same week. In the 18 to 49, or the 35 to 4, 18 to 34. Sorry. And live attendance and house shows, attendance at AEW events is stagnant, mirroring declines in ratings. House shows are an indicator of fan engagement, financial health, and the decline started well before TV ratings and pay-per-view buy rates fell. But they still remain profitable because they just got a $555 million three-year TV and streaming deal with WBD that has insulated the company from financial woes. But this only extends until the end of 2027. They did get a little bit of good news. All in Texas, the Globe Life Field sold 6,000 tickets with gross revenue surpassing $1.25 million. Man, how expensive are those freaking tickets? It's the third highest grossing event in AEW's history. It would be behind the previous two All Ins. So what is going on? I think the ratings and then the ticket sales, that really is scary for this company.
I agree. I did a JD Oliva project, I think earlier in the week. Where
you've done 2 of those this week, man. You were on a roll, brother.
Dude, you gave me the idea of just to record stuff on the phone and not worry about the slick video production. And you were right, man. I did
it works and people love it. So keep it up. People love
I'm gonna, because I have time in the car and I have thoughts. So like there's kudos to my friend Mike Gilbert on this one. Anyways, I did one on Batman Revelation. So if you like Batman, like Batman 89, good book. Check it out. Check out my review. I also did one on Tony Khan. Like this Post Wrestling put up a thing saying, should Tony Khan step down as head of creative? And a lot of people were like, yes, absolutely. And in theory, I agree that Tony Khan is burnt out. I think you see it right now too. I think what we're seeing right now is mirroring WCW 1987. I think we're seeing WCW 1987 into 1988. So the difference being is like, when WCW or NWA Crockett, I should say, hit this spot in 1988, they sold to Turner and they were basically done. The true story is when Dusty, that was when that happened. Dusty got a little bit of a creative reboost and things started to pick up in 88. Mm-hmm. But Dusty messed up and got fired.
Yeah.
Which actually, the whole tumultuous thing, we're seeing the opposite of AEW. They got insulated. So I do think that Tony Khan should step down as head of creative, because I think he's burnt out. Here's the problem. Who's going to take his spot?
Ding, ding, ding. I mean, I have a name, but he's never been fired from WWE, so I don't think they'll bring him in.
I agree with you. And like, I'd like to talk more about that, but I cannot. Yeah. So I do think that I don't think anyone in that company, I think if you told me that Jen Pepperman should head that company, I'd tell you you're crazy because her stuff sucks. Like, I don't care what people tell me. I don't care how well liked she is. I don't care that I know the women are getting more opportunities now, and some of the stuff is better than it was, but no one's watching the show right now, right? People aren't. I mean, like they had something cool with Moxley, and they managed to make that not cool, right? The they don't push the C2 enough to make it something special. Like they're very bad at promoting their business. Right? They're so bad at promoting wrestling. So that nothing ever seems cool. Like it just, and that's the problem is like, you tell me Jen Pepperman or Will Washington or who else is there? It's a dork. RD Reynolds. You tell me these people can Sanjay. I mean, like none of these people can run a wrestling. I saw some stupid suggestions like Eric Bischoff. It's like, come on, man. Come on. Use your fucking brain.
Did you see who Eric Bischoff suggested?
No.
He said Tony should step down and he should hire Bully Ray to be his head booker.
See, why do people listen to this guy? Like, why does anybody listen to him? I heard Jim Cornette, like Jim Cornette's Ring of Honor stuff didn't draw any money. Like they lost money with Cornette booking. Like, and this is the thing is Tony Khan was a fresh voice in pro wrestling in 2019 and 2020, right? He was a guy from the outside who was doing different things, who listened to people around him and hired a bunch of business. Well, you have to hire that guy there in WWE. Like now the product feels like WWE and the AEW fan base doesn't want a WWE product. And now we're too far gone. So, you listened about Max last year, you hired Jen Pepperman, you hired all these people from WWE, and I don't really care who thinks I'm an asshole for saying all these things, but you took away your voice. And now you're to the point where how do you turn back? You can't turn the Titanic around. You can't. Like, I don't know I know one guy who could actually make legit changes over there, but they won't hire him. I don't think Tony is secure enough in his masculinity to bring in somebody that could outperform him.
I think that's a very good point. I And the problem is if he did bring in somebody that could outperform him, would he allow that to happen?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I mean, if you go back, and I'm not guys, I'm going to compare him to Vince. I'm not comparing him to Vince as far as being a human being. Okay,
grow up.
I'm not doing that. So if that's what you're thinking, you're a stupid person. Okay, but if you take a look, so I think the comparator as far as being promoter and like head of creative and CEO, the other guy that's doing that in America that's done that has been Vince, right? And Vince would bring in people, but he was always the decision maker, right? He would have Pat Patterson and Bruce Pritchard and Vince Russo, and even at one point in time he had Bill Watts, and he's always had other people in the room.
Jarrett.
Yeah, Jerry Jarrett. He at one point he hired Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff to manage separate shows, but everything went through him anyway, right? And so I get the feeling it's like the buck's always going to stop with Tony no matter what, because
it's his company. It kind of has to.
He's got 4 different titles in that company. He's the head of creative. He's the president, the CEO, the chief financial. He's like everything with that company. And it's like, take off some of those hats, right? And it's like, yeah, you could be the ultimate decision maker, but at some point you got to just take a step back and let people create, and they might actually bring you some good ideas. The problem is the people that you've brought in are filled with ideas from WWE that your audience doesn't want, right? The reason why AEW was a movement is because they were the anti-WWE. But now all they are is just another content farm that nobody really cares about anymore. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy the show still. For the most part, I still enjoy the show. The difference is I'm apathetic to the show, and I could take it or leave it. This week, I made sure to watch Dynamite. That way I had something to talk about on the podcast. But I kind of forced myself to watch it. I wasn't looking forward to it. And that's the problem, right? Like if AEW came to my town, I would check it out. But if AEW is 3 hours away, I'm probably not going to go because that's inconvenient to me, right? But back in the day, I would have gone anywhere close to where AEW is at to make sure that I was going to their show. Unfortunately for me, they've never really been close to me, so I've never been able to make it to a show. But
I've been to tons. I've been to tons of AEW shows. I've probably been to 10 AEW shows the last 5 years. Like, and every time I go, it gets less and less fun. Like last show I went to was 2 weeks ago. It was the last time I watched Dynamite. Like, we have kids practice on Wednesdays, and I used to stay up late to watch Dynamite, and I'm tired now, and it's just, I just can't justify staying up. Like, there was times I would go to work super tired on Thursday morning because I was not going to miss Dynamite. And now it's like, I'll catch up later. And then I never do. And I don't watch Collision. I don't watch Rampage anymore because it's just not fun. Like, it just isn't a fun show anymore. Like, and that's no one's fault but Tony Khan.
Yeah.
Right? It's your show. You wanted to be the guy. Like, you got to, and this is a part of time too, is this dude has such a hard time taking responsibility for his failures. Right? And we all have failures. And Vince McMahon was the same way. Like, this is why I don't think it's over, because Vince McMahon had a lot of times, like, watch early 90s Raws. They fucking sucked. Like, watch any Raw from like 2003 on. Like, it's just, I just don't know how. The problem with being a billionaire is that, like, everyone kisses your ass and tells you how great you are your whole life because they want something from you, right? You have this thing called money that everybody wants, and everybody's really going to tell you what you want to hear because they want some of your money. So you have an unrealistic expectation of what you can do and what people think of you. And it all revolves on the fact that you have a lot of money. So, I mean, like, everyone shits on Tony Khan, but he's got a nice little circle around him telling him, what he needs to hear. Right? Because one, they want to keep their jobs. 2, they want an opportunity. So they try to be nice to get their opportunity. So, like, you don't get real. Like, and I think that he's insecure enough that he would never turn the reins over to anybody else, even for a hiccup. Like, but you look at Memphis, Jarrett and Lawler would like book 6 months out. Like, Jarrett would have 6 months, Lawler would have 6 months. Then they bring in Dundee. Like, even like Bill Watts would bring in different bookers to UWF Mid-South at times. Like, I just
JD during UWF's hottest period, who was booking for UWF?
Bill Dundee.
Yeah, he brought in Bill Dundee from Memphis, and he just handed over the book, and he was there in a leadership role. He probably tweaked some ideas here and there, but he just let him run wild, and then and Dundee was doing some pretty innovative stuff at the time. And had some hot feuds like Revolt. Like, was it Dundee that brought in like the Midnight Express and
Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express? They brought in Memphis. They brought a taste of Memphis into UWF. right? They never had anything like that there. Like, and he also booked like the Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Ted DiBiase feud, right? Like this was like big stuff for, and that's like the hottest time of Mid-South was actually when the Dog was on his way out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's crazy to think about that. But I mean, but then Dundee was out, and then I forget who took over after Dundee, but eventually like Eddie Gilbert gets the book there toward the end. Like they had bookers would rotate in. So you have a different creative flair. Like we don't have that anymore. And I think that Tony Khan could do that, but I don't think he's secure enough to say, hey, I need time to recharge. Like it's a disappointing thing when a creative can't admit to himself that he's a little burnt out and needs to step away. Right. Yeah. And I think that the show, it's not fun anymore. It's not a bad show, but it's also not a good show. Right. Like Dynamites used to be super fun, and they're not super fun anymore. So what do? Like just keep doing the same thing, I guess, over and over, because you got your money now. And I don't think he cares.
Yeah. And that's the problem. The problem is that, I think it was Sugar Ray Leonard said that it's really hard to get up in the morning and train when you're laying in a bed with satin sheets, right? After you've already made the money, it's really hard to get back out there and grind. You typically train your hardest when you're the hungriest. And right now, AEW doesn't seem like they're a hungry promotion. It just seems like a collection of Tony's favorites from when he was a childhood fan, right? Edge and Christian and Shelton and Bobby Lashley and Chris Jericho and all these other guys, and then just some hot stars from the indies, and they're all just kind of like taking turns doing stuff. It's just like there's no real like true direction. There's no significant storyline that's really capturing the attention and making you want to tune in every week. They had me for a little bit with the Moxley thing, and that's a big disappointment for me. They dropped it, and it died the moment that they had a bunch of I guess I call them J words. I don't want to get in trouble, but a bunch of enhancement talent and maybe like one or two stars standing outside the arena to confront them, but none of the stars actually cared, right? And like Team AEW was just like team a few guys, right? And then the whole thing just kind of like sucked, and now they're heading to a fatal four-way, and they called it a fatal four-way. Jon Moxley called it a fatal four-way coming up at World's End, right? And one of those people in the match, Hangman Adam Page, has no like sporting reason to be in the match. He's done nothing but lose major matches, but he just kind of like he's just in there. So
he beat Swerve. He did beat Swerve.
He beat Swerve, but then he lost 2 straight to Jay White.
He did do that.
Yeah, and now he's getting a title shot with Jay White. Like it just doesn't make it. They're trying to make it make sense. It just makes no sense to me.
Because he wants a 4-way, because they don't have anybody. Like they don't have like the Moxley thing lost steam the moment they tried to make Orange Cassidy the top babyface.
Yeah,
it didn't work. Like that should not be what the character is. Like I get why they didn't want to go with Darby right away, but I think you should have gone with Darby right away because it would have been hot, right? Like coming out of that pay-per-view, I think you could have gotten something with Moxley and Darby right away. And then if Darby loses, he could always come back and rebuild himself because it's Darby Allin. He's an underdog character. Like. But with Orange Cassidy, it still doesn't work. And I don't feel like Jay White or Hangman is more. They want to keep Swerve away from it a little bit. But I mean, like, and they dump water all over. Because we heard from a friend of ours that when Will Ospreay was at his hottest in this company, we heard that, well, his quarter hours aren't the best they should be. So we need to, like, build Ospreay up a little bit. Well, how's that worked out? How's that gone for you guys, huh? You had something going there. And then you made him put over Swerve, but you didn't have to do that. You could have put somebody else in that spot. Like, I don't understand why we had to take why we had to take the wheels out of these guys. Why we had to take them out from their knees. Like, you guys are in charge of this. Like, it was needless stuff. Like, it's death by 1,000 cuts time and time again. If someone's fucking hot, ride them. It's not that hard, pro wrestling. It really isn't. But they make it so hard, and here's the problem. They make it so boring.
Yeah. So they really did have something with Ospreay. The crowd was responding to him like a megastar. The quarter hours are going to come later. Dave spells it out perfectly in The Observer, where first the house shows will decline and then followed by the ratings. And I feel like it's be the opposite. Like if at the arenas they're responding to somebody, I think the ratings are going to like end up following that. Like they were making a big star. They really should have pulled the trigger on Ospreay being the top star in this promotion over the summer, but he lost, and then they cooled him off, and now he's still, And now he's still one of the most amazing wrestlers I've ever seen, but he's not a star. It sucks.
Okada's the same way. They brought in Okada. They had him just say bitch over and over again. And they took well, it was cool about Okada. For a storyline this elite storyline that went nowhere. Tony tried to make him relive the early 90s or late 90s. Like it's so the story of this company in 2024 is so disappointing because it was so bad in 2023. The Brochachos thing really took this wind out of so many sails, and then they just kept fucking up. They just kept getting it got interesting when Danielson came back. Like, okay, that was pretty cool. Like the final countdown, that was fun. But then after that, they've had no follow-up.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And now in 2024, we're trying to make Ricochet happen. Ricochet is one of the most amazing, like, in-ring competitor, like as far as like athletic moves and stuff like that. But he cannot cut a promo to save his life. so and I wanted him to come in and just do flippy shit, but that didn't mean I wanted them to push him like crazy. And now they're going to bring in Speedball, and I get the feeling they're going to try to push Speedball. And he's just kind of another guy that can't cut promos, that just has good matches that nobody's going to care about. And I like Speedball.
This used to be a promotion where you had to cut a promo. This used to be a promotion like a Crockett where dudes would just grab the microphone and tell compelling stories. I remember some empty arena stuff with John Moxley and Eddie Kingston when they were just cutting promos on each other. And it was like some of the most compelling TV you ever saw for wrestling. And like, we're not there anymore. Like now we're breaking cars and shit every week. Like it's like stop being the 90s. Stop trying to do attitude era bullshit. Do something different. Stop just trying to pretend you have your favorite wrestling company. Like just be original. It's not hard.
Oh man, that AEW is so frustrating because I love that company from its inception up until like towards the end of last year. And then now I've just been trying to make it happen again in my life. I just like, it feels like I'm in an abusive relationship with them because every once in a while they'll do something. It's like, oh man, AEW is back. They restored the feeling. And I'm just like, now I have no feelings towards them whatsoever. I'm just, because
apathy, man.
Yeah, it's apathy because the movement is gone. The movement died. Right. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing. They were gonna change wrestling for the good. They were gonna make wrestling better for everybody, and they weren't gonna pull the same shenanigans and tactics that WWE was pulling. And now they're not doing the, ungodly, immoral things that WWE is allegedly, whatever. If you want to say allegedly, I think we kind of know like what happened there.
I think legally you have to say allegedly.
I think so. I don't want to get defamation. I don't have any money, but like what they're allegedly put. I'm just talking about like the product that they're putting on the screen and like the way they're doing some of the contract stuff. It's like they're kind of doing some of the similar stuff that WWE was doing, and they're getting away because WWE did it first, and so it's weird. I think they. As far as some of the things are kind of giving up a little bit of the moral high ground. I think another thing that really hurt them, because they had the moral high ground for a long time, they brought in Flair. And I really did I like Flair and I liked the whole thing, but I think that a lot of people were kind of turned off by that because this was like the moral company and they went for the money instead, and they used a guy that had a bunch of accusations. I think people were pretty upset about that. And the TV show has just been hit or miss, and it's just not a fun experience anymore.
Agreed.
So let's see what else do we got? Chat, if you got something for us, go ahead and sound off. You know what? I had some WWE business numbers, but I think we don't really need to go in on that. I think everybody kind of knows. Let's talk about Phoenix.
I thought that's what you were going to segue into. To be honest, I think you were doing that. So continue.
It was a perfect segue, but I lost my brain for a second. But
I was wondering where you were going. Well, you had something. I'm like, oh, I guess we're not going to talk about Phoenix. Okay.
So I did a 20-minute podcast in a car talking about Phoenix. It's up on the Patreon. I went on a bit of a rant. The problem is I don't know where I stand on the situation because I kind of understand where AEW is coming from on their side. So if you guys are living under a rock, Phoenix is trying like hell to get out of his contract. And he is willing to burn it to the ground in order to do that. Apparently, AEW still has a year's worth of dates left on his deal because While the time limit expired, they tacked on injury time, which is something that WWE's been doing for a long time, which I think we've all been pretty critical of WWE for doing in the past, right? They did it to several people, and we were pretty critical of them for doing that. Now AEW is doing it. TNA has done it to people. They did it to Josh Alexander. They did it to several other people. So this is not a singular company thing. So I get that. But they got this guy who's miserable. He wants to go to WWE with his brother, and out of spite, they're holding him to the contract. They're going to pay him a lot of money. So Phoenix, I don't really think this is inhumane treatment to get paid a lot of money to sit at home and you're able to go work indies whenever you want. So I think inhumane is probably not the way to describe it. But I also see Phoenix's side. Like, he wants out of his deal. And I do think that there should be some language in the contract where they should be able to come up to an amicable solution for both sides to part ways, especially with this injury time. But that's just not the way the deals work. And I think if Tony doesn't hold him to the deals, then WWE is going to continue to get in his talent's ear to get them to get out of their deals. So it's like fucking damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I have zero sympathy for Phoenix on this, mainly because Conan is his agent, right? Conan is a guy. Here's why I hate Conan. Conan, the AAA, was hooked up with Tony from the beginning, and Conan made appearances on the show. Tony sent talent always to AAA shows. They sent them Kenny Omega. They sent them Andrade when he was there. Tony did a lot to help AAA. And all Conan did was he got on his dipshit podcast with Disco, Dipfuck, Pace, and Perno and bury them constantly. And Tony never said a bad word about him. Never. Tony never shit on Conan publicly until Conan pulled the bullshit with FTR, Dragon Lee, and Drillistico, right? Where they had Dragon Lee I think it was Dash, win the titles, and they immediately said, "Oh, Dragon Lee's going to WWE. Yep. Dragon Lee's going to WWE." And Conan thought it was hilarious, right? And then Tony said, "Fuck you," and started working with CMLL. And then Conan, one more time, "Hey, you listen to my podcast?" "Yeah, I did. And I heard you say that what goes around comes around." And he said it 3 times. What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. So he manipulated his clients, Phoenix and Pentagon, to WWE, right? Well, because they're associated with Conan, what went around came around, right? We are in life, you are the people that you are associated with. And those guys chose to associate with a bad business partner. Like Conan constantly shit on them, despite the fact that Tony was helping his company for years. Kenny Omega drew big houses there, and Conan would go on his dumbass podcast, Keeping It 100, and would shit on their show all the time, his business partner. And I'm supposed to feel bad for people that are associated with this guy that was fucking over his business partner the entire time. I have zero sympathy. Wait a year. Wait a year. Get paid for a year, because Phoenix gets hurt all the time anyway. So you might as well give him a year to heal up. I have none. I have no sympathy for Phenix on this because of Conan.
I completely agree with you. And not only that, like, they were openly negotiating. It was an open secret that they were negotiating with WWE while they were under contract with AEW, which is a complete no-no. If you're going to negotiate with them, keep it to yourself. That happens all the time. Nobody leaves one company by their own free will if they don't have another gig ready to go. I retired from the military just now, and the only reason I did is because I had another gig to go to. Like, that's a smart way to do it. But what I didn't do is go telling everybody that I was talking with another company, right? Because I didn't want to jinx it. Like, Air Force wouldn't care. They would be happy for me. But when you're like, it goes the same way it goes for sports. Like, you're not going to be a linebacker on this team. Like, say you're a linebacker for the Jags. You're not going to openly, like, have an open secret out there that you're negotiating with another team when they still own your rights. They're like, you're losing leverage at that point. And that's exactly what happened to these guys. And then they tried to go back on it and say that we're happy in AEW. It's like, no, the cat's out of the bag. Like, you have too many friends with too big a mouth that spilled the beans on this deal. And so that's why this is happening to them, right? Now, I get the feeling that if you were a good actor and Tony really liked you, you might be able to work a deal to get out of your contract. You know, I think that's what happened with Cody Rhodes, right? Like, they worked out a deal and he ended up going over to WWE.
Can I throw another one at you?
Go ahead.
Andrade got him. So Andrade bitched and he punched Sammy Guevara, which is a great idea. Everybody should do it with themselves at least once in their life. Everybody should punch Sammy Guevara. He got suspended, came back, and was a model employee, didn't bitch, worked a lot on TV, was in the first Continental Classic, had a bunch of good matches, and then left.
Mm-hmm.
And then left without like they came to a deal. Tony said, I'll let you go, but I'm going to use you on TV. I just want you to be a model employee. Andrade said, okay. And then he was fine on the way out. And there was no bad blood between them. And is Andrade still the speed champion? I mean, he's getting pushed heavily in WWE, right?
I don't know. I watched Saturday night's main event last night. Because they had Jesse Ventura on there. I was like, okay, I got to see what this is like. It was actually pretty cool. I actually really enjoyed it. It was an easy show to watch, especially if you skip the Liv Morgan match, which is what I did because I'm a genius. I'm not watching that. So, I thought it was a pretty fun show, and so I did put Saturday night's main event in the tagline because I was gonna talk about it. So he wasn't on it. I watched Survivor Series. He wasn't on that either, as far as I can remember. I didn't watch everything on Survivor Series. I think that Andrade is just kind of a guy they like to bring to TV, which is the exact same role that he had in AEW. Wouldn't get any pay-per-view matches there either, so it was kind of a lateral move for him. But with Phoenix and Pentagon, now you got Pentagon out there. He's a complete free agent, and I don't think WWE wants him unless he's with Phoenix. Like we talked about the Brainbusters earlier. I think that's a similar situation where they look at Pentagon, who I think is of the two is probably the most charismatic by far. Phoenix is the better in-ring competitor, but I think Pentagon would line up with what WWE likes. I think he would probably get a little bit of a push there if they want to give him a chance, but I think they wanted him as a tag team. And now he's just going to be doing stuff on his own. The good news is, TNA fans in the chat, I think these guys might continue to talk themselves out of a WWE deal and be stuck in TNA, and that's really good for my podcast, so I'm happy about that.
It's entirely possible. Like, because that's what... Like, I think Tony talked about fighting back a couple of years ago. Like, it was pretty immature the way he said it. But I mean, this is kind of how business is. This is how Vince would do things. This is how wrestling has always been. And I don't believe that any business is moral, right? I think all businesses by in general are immoral. So I can't fault them, especially when you have guys like Conan, bad faith actors who are very much self-absorbed, who take advantage of their friendships and blow them into something that they're not. AAA is a god-awful promotion. Conan's a terrible booker, and he's not a great agent, as it turns out.
He routinely gives people bad advice. Him and Magnum TA should no longer be giving the advice, especially because the Lucha brothers really look up to him because he literally discovered them when they were children. Mm-hmm. They were out front in Mexico City, like outside of a wrestling show, practicing their moves in the streets, and that's where he kind of like recruited them. At least that's the legend that was being told. I don't know if that's true or not.
Conan's full of shit, so who knows?
Yeah, but he has really guided their career since they were children, and they've been pretty successful. They completely screwed the pooch on this one. They totally screwed this one up because they would still be on TV right now, being pushed. Not the top tag team, but they'd be pushed. They'd be having some pretty good matches. And then they could probably go out of the company with dignity. But now they got some stank on them. And I'm like, if you're WWE and you're watching how they're behaving, trying to get out of their deals there, you're like, I think they would do the same thing to us. Do I want to bring these people in?
Yeah. I would not. If I had a business, I would not do business with Conan.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't. I don't think he's someone you can trust. I don't think he's a good faith actor. I really don't. Like, there's a reason why when the Radicals thing shook down, they didn't touch Conan because Conan fucked him over on the Max Moon thing. They spent $100,000 on that Max Moon outfit, and Conan bounced.
Yeah,
to Paul Diamond, and it didn't work. Right? I'm not saying it was a great gimmick, but here's why when all those guys left WCW, Conan didn't go with because Vince said, "I don't want him."
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't live up to his word back then. And that was a gimmick that he created.
Yep.
He created the gimmick. He got them to buy all the gear, and he just no-showed the whole deal. And they gave the gimmick to Paul Diamond, and it didn't. Now, I don't think anybody wearing that gimmick it was going to work. I think it was dead on arrival.
No, but they still spent a ton of money on it, and he still just ghosted him. This is why they didn't bring him in. They didn't bring him in when the Radicals thing shook down. They didn't bring him in when WCW closed in 2001, and they brought everybody in, not Conan.
Yeah. Yeah. Was in TNA, and surprise, surprise, he ends up suing TNA. he left there, and then it took forever, but TNA being TNA, they ended up bringing him back. I think in like a 2017 or something like that. Jarrett brought him back. So
see the beginning of the show. Like that's just what TNA does. But no, I wouldn't. I don't feel bad for Phoenix because I think he took some bad advice. I'm not saying he should have stayed with AEW. I'm not saying if you're not happy with it, but there's a way to leave the company. And I get the fuck out of here. What I'm about to say, but Andrade was a great example of how you leave this place.
Yeah, I think Miro. He's not doing anything publicly, but he is obviously leaking to the media that he's trying to get out of his deal. But he hasn't really done anything public to like embarrass himself or anybody else, which is what the Lucha Brothers are doing. So I hope that him and Tony Khan can find an amicable way for him to get out of that contract. I do think that pro wrestlers need to protect themselves a little bit better with the language in the contracts. I understand the importance, like we're in a capitalistic society, right? And the employers are always going to have the leverage. They're not going to bring somebody in unless they get the leverage, unless like you're just absolutely worth it. Like if you're Hulk Hogan, they're going to give you all the leverage in the world just to bless your company with your presence, right? But if you're a lower level guy, I would at least try to get some language in the contract where if there's injury time added, which only exists in pro wrestling, it doesn't exist in any other pro sport, only exists in pro wrestling. If you're getting injury time added, you should be able to like have a negotiation window where that can be reduced, or you can get out of the contract, altogether. Or if there's like a way like, hey, look, I don't really want to be here. I'm not happy anymore. I don't like the creative. You're not going to push me the way I want. I'd like to just go be on my own. There's got to be a way to negotiate to get out of that deal. There's got to be some type of language in the contract. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I am not a contract lawyer. I did take a class for, dealing with contract management. I have hired people on contracts in the military before, but they were able to give us like notice. Like they could just like give us 30 days notice and you just let them out of their deal. Like that was not a big deal. So something's got to happen to where these wrestlers can get out of the contracts, because I think it's kind of obscene right now. Phoenix aside, I think just overall that there's got to be some, like, I know we're never going to get a union, but wrestlers need to figure out a way to get better contracts.
I don't disagree with that one, but I just, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is right now. I think I have a conspiracy theory. I think Miro's doing this on purpose because he knows he can't really go back to WWE, but he doesn't really want to be in AEW either. So if he bitches publicly, they'll just keep him around so he can't be somewhere else and he keeps getting paid. That's my Miro conspiracy theory right now.
If that conspiracy theory is true, Miro is the greatest wrestler of all time.
Greatest worker in history.
He is a complete genius. There's some people are saying that because Camille kind of did an interview and said that, she has a lot more to offer AEW. And now people are saying that AEW is never going to bring her back to TV, because she isn't what they want, right? That's just not her. She's a power move, like lanky power move beast of a wrestler. She's not going to do what AEW does. And so they didn't really lean into her strengths, and they kind of put her in a position to make her look bad. So they're probably never going to bring her on. But now it looks like, I don't think she was like complaining, but people took snippets of an interview and made it seem like she was complaining. And if Tony sees that, he's probably just going to make her sit and just pay her for 3 years. And if so, kudos to you too, Camille. Get paid.
Why do people, like, we've seen time and again, remember Brian Cage is the best example. Brian Cage's wife went and bitched, and Brian Cage spent like 2 years in purgatory, but he's still there and still getting paid because he himself didn't complain, but he's still there. He's got a job, but Tony Khan because again, I talked about insecurity. Tony Khan very much does not like when people go on public forums and complain about his company if you're employed by the company. And I kind of get that. If you're working for, I don't know, like a big major bank corporation, and you do a public corporate, and you do an interview where you bury said corporation, they're not going to look kindly upon you. I bring that up for no reason.
Honestly, I don't know if you were working for a major bank. I don't know why you would complain. I think that's a great business to get into, to be honest with
you. See, that's how you answer that. That's how you answer that question. It's not that hard. Like, I'm very happy with my job. I would love to do. Of course, I want to do more. I'm hungry. I really want to be the best that I can be. I love going to work every day, and I just want to show what I can do. And I'm so excited with all these ideas. It's not hard, man. You're a fucking wrestler. You're a liar. You're a professional liar. Just do it.
Yeah. And be a professional. Like, shitting on your employer does not help you with future employers.
No.
I can assure you of that.
It burns a bridge.
Dude, I interviewed somebody for a contractor position one time, right? Not a contract. This would have been a military. They would have been a federal employee, so not even on a contract. They would have been a federal employee, and I interviewed them, and they came in. And I talk about like strengths and weaknesses, which is like a typical question you ask on an interview. So, well, what are your strengths? And they had some pretty good strengths. And like, well, what are your weaknesses? And they go, oh, well, sometimes my mouth just gets me into trouble. And I was like, huh, okay. I was like, then I looked down and see her the last employer. Was like, okay, well, I saw that you were working here as a secretary. What was it like there? And why did you decide to leave? And she just completely buried the whole operation. And I was like, I'm not going to hire you. So after the interview was over, I had to tell this person immediately because she was prior military. So she's like enlisted person. So she's one of us, right? So I got to take care of her as like being a senior veteran here. So I pulled her to the side and was like, hey, you're going to get another job interview one day because you're in the system. Don't ever say this again and never speak badly about your previous employer, even if it's the truth. At least wait till you get through the door, right? Don't do it on an interview burying your previous employer because I'm going to think you're going to do that to me. So I can't hire you as my secretary. That's not my personal secretary, the secretary for my office, right? Like that was going to be her job. And she ended up getting interviewed again like 4 months later, used my advice, got hired on the spot, was like the number one hiree, and is still working in that clinic to this day because you just don't do that. You don't bury your current employer when you're looking for your next job. You never do that.
Nope. Because who wants that? Like, be smart. Like, I guess a lot of times wrestlers never have real jobs in their life, so they don't know how to do this. I buried Effie, and it seemed like AEW and GCW found a way to make that whole thing work. So,
yeah. Oh, we should talk about that. So Jericho was on GCW over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. He went and attacked Mid Cardona and Effie, and it looks like they're going to do some business.
Kudos to them. Like they clearly things weren't going well between them. Effie said some stupid shit, and Tony actually showed some, humility for a change. Yeah. So good for them for figuring things out. I spent a lot of time burying Tony on the show, but he actually did what I said he didn't do earlier. So there's room. I still think Effie is a complete idiot. Like again, you don't bury potential employers on the internet for no reason. He actually did an interview saying, I am so stupid. And I respect for that, for a guy pointing out his own faults and being dumb.
Yeah.
And eating a little crow publicly.
Yeah, but he also blamed it on being gay, and I was just like, no, you don't get to do that.
I thought he said he could blame it on being gay, but didn't. I thought he was like, well, this is how the gay community is. We're bitchy, and like, I forget that normal people aren't like, or regular people aren't like that. So that's how I interpreted that. But maybe
the way I interpreted it, maybe I'm wrong, and so if I'm wrong, I do apologize. But I took it as like he was like, well, he was making it as he was using it as an excuse. Well, in the gay community, this is how we are. And that's why I was being the way that I was. It's like, no, you don't get to do that because I work with tons of gay people and they're not like that. So they're professionals, right?
Well, he's not a professional though. He's a wrestler. Like he works for GCW. So I mean, like, but at the same time, I'll give him credit for kind of eating a little bit of crow publicly, and it seems like they're going to do some business off it. So good for them. I like seeing that. I think AEW needs to be back in a spot where they are more friendly to the indies because I think that helped them more than it hurt them. And I do think they're better. They're better for pro wrestling landscape than WWE is because WWE just historically just mauls down everything in their pathways. Right. Historically, but kudos.
So you're a Ring of Honor guy. Rank Jericho versus Cardona against CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi. Like we're in Final Battle. We're in Ring of Honor history. Would this one rank? You think?
This would be at the bottom.
Yeah. What are they thinking? Like that does not that is a WWE match from 2016 that I don't think anybody really wants to see. Now I'm not saying that they're not telling a good story. I think actually. Like they're doing a decent job of getting Cardona over and incorporating GCW, but that's not a match that's a Ring of Honor championship match. Like that's like kind of embarrassed for Ring of Honor.
I think they're just trying to sell some pay-per-views to some of the hardcore fans that pay attention to the internet, because I think they've kind of realized their AEW fan base doesn't give a shit. So they're trying to reach the people who would buy GCW pay-per-views and stuff to buy it. I don't know if it's the move. I have no idea. Like, I don't know. I keep hearing Ring of Honor is going to get a TV deal. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. I don't know, man. I mean, like, it does nothing for me. Nothing.
There's no demand for it. That's what I think about. That's what I think about TNA too. Everyone's like, TNA is going to get a new TV deal, and I'm just like, I don't see the demand for it. There's already so much pro wrestling on television already. Rampage got canceled, right? So I think the demand is for less wrestling on television. To be honest with you,
I think we've peaked. I think we've hit the peak. I think I mentioned this before. Like, the kids in my class, this is kind of my barometer, are kind of over WWE.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, oh, we'll watch the big shows. We don't watch Raw every week anymore. And I was kind of like, I don't know if that's good. Because that was my key when these guys were freshmen, that I'm like, oh, wrestling's picking up again. Now that they're seniors, it's kind of, that was old. So I don't know if it's, and you look at some of the stuff, like some of the attendances seem to be trending down a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. So I do think we've passed the peak.
Yeah, I agree. The last thing wrestling fans need is more wrestling on television. So, yeah, I don't have time either. I watch Dynamite every week, and I watch Impact, and that's because Impact feeds my podcast, right? And that's kind of what's keeping the network, like Dynamite and Impact, are really the two shows that if we keep watching, we're still staying plugged in, right? I will watch a WWE show over the weekend and try to do a podcast about it, and none of my goddamn Patreon subscribers will even listen to it. They don't care about WWE, so they only want to hear something about AEW and Impact.
That's not our fan base. Like, and every time we post some WWE stuff, we get some randoms in the YouTube page that like get mad that we're not WWE fans. So I mean, like, it's just there's a million WWE podcasts out there, and that's just not us. That's really not our network, to be honest with you. Like, no one at Voices of Wrestling really cares about WWE. The closest, honestly, the one who cares the most about WWE is probably Joe.
Yeah, he watches all the shows. They go live. They went live after Saturday night's main event last night on the flagship. So if you want your WWE content, that's where to go. All right, hey, we're gonna skedaddle. I'm getting the hook here, but I do have Antonio Baker has a good question for JD. Because the answer for me is no. But JD, have y'all guys watched Dune Prophecy, Creature Commandos, or the Penguin series?
No, I still have to watch Dune 2. And I don't have a lot of time right now with all the stuff I have. I do want to watch Creature Commandos. I just need time. And I wasn't planning on watching the Penguin series at all. But I've heard so much good stuff about it. I just need the time. And realistically, I probably won't be able to touch it till summertime. But I do plan on watching both Creature Commandos and Penguin. Dune Prophecy, it depends. That's down the line. I mean, like, if I really like Dune 2, I might go back to it. But I'll be honest, I didn't really love Dune 1 all that much. I thought it was kind of boring.
I didn't see the original Dune, to be honest with you, so I haven't watched the new Dune. I haven't seen Dune 2, and I have not seen Dune Prophecy. I am interested in the Penguin series, and I was waiting for the series, the first season, to be over, and then I was going to give it a shot. And I was actually planning on watching it last night, but for some reason I pulled up Netflix first just to see what was on, and they have a crime docuseries called The Kings of Tupelo, where a conspiracy theorist set of brothers. Hold on. They're a set of brothers. One of them is a big time conspiracy theorist, and they're also Elvis impersonators. And one of them tries to kill Barack Obama, and it becomes a huge thing. So I'm in on this one. So one of the brothers tries to kill the president. It's a whole plot. He also thinks that his hospital that he was working at, where he was a janitor, was selling body parts off. And so he created all these. He said he created 40 different websites trying to sound the alarm about his hospital selling off body parts on an illegal body part exchange, like the black market. So that's kind of what I'm watching right now, is this Elvis impersonator talking about this shit. So that's kind of taking over. That's taking precedence right now.
I get it. That's that's so you. Like, that's awesome that you're watching that. That makes me so entertained.
Yeah, maybe I'll go witching hour about it, but down the road.
That's perfect, actually. I keep wanting to do more MLW content because I know I'm not gonna like it, and I really like picking on MLW sometimes, but I just don't have the time.
JD, MLW did the funniest fucking thing of all time. Not of all time. They did something so funny. So they brought in Eric Bischoff, right? And And I was like, I was kind of shitting on it.
Oh yeah,
But they brought in Eric Bischoff, and then on commentary, they brought him on, and he gave away the results from TNA that night. And I thought that was so hilarious. I was like, just kind of classic Bischoff giving away the results of the competitor, because they were going up against like MLW was going head to head with Impact that night, and Bischoff came on and gave away the results, and it was so funny.
That is funny, actually. Kudos.
Yeah.
Well done, Court. That's a good one.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for us this week on the Mike and JD show. Sorry we went on Sunday night. We'll be back in a regular time slot coming up this Thursday. Come hell or high water, we will have a show this coming up Thursday. Make sure you're a Patreon subscriber. Go to patreon.com/Mike and JD show. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're listening to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, leave a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. The more 5-star reviews we get, the bigger our Christmas bonus from Voices of Wrestling will be, which might actually just still be 0, but we'll try to get one. But all right, guys, that's it for us this week. Mahalo.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you brought your A game. Mate, no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you brought your A game. Mate, no rain from
Hey now, it's Mike Gilbert, host of the Mike and JD Show, right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Join JD by God Oliva and myself every Thursday night live on the Voices of Wrestling YouTube channel at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we stay up all night discussing all the hottest stories in professional wrestling. You can also check us out right here on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting feed, or you can subscribe to the Mike and JD Show feed. Now, enjoy the show.